Well, hi there, it's Sandy Allnock, and today I am going to be coloring the Mondo Tulips and making a beautiful little 4-bar card out of it. 4-bar cards are a little smaller than an A2, and they're often used for things like reply cards, that kind of stuff, but I love making cards of all sizes, and it gets me kind of excited that we now have some dies that are made especially for 4-bar cards. So Mondo Tulips have a die set. I'm going to use the dies and the stamps. I'm going to use the new 4-bar rectangle frames, and I'm going to stamp onto this letterpress cardstock with some ink on 3 no line coloring ink. And this paper is really soft because I'm going to use it with colored pencils, and it's also a little heavier than other cardstocks. And the other paper that I'm going to embellish with is going to be the wood grain white paper. And what I've done is kind of lay it out for myself so I can figure out what I want to do with these rectangles, because I wanted to nest them and see how that would work on a card. And I'm nesting the frame that's cut out of one paper, then another section that's cut out of the wood grain, and then nest another frame, and then another piece of wood grain. And then I want to layer the tulips on top, because I love texture a lot. I mean, I really, really love texture and depth and dimension. I wanted the base of the card to be kind of flat and then the tulips to pop on top. So I kind of had that laid out for myself, and I die cut the same dies, the same rectangles as you saw, out of both papers so that I could nest them together that way. Well, for coloring tulips, the great thing about tulips is it doesn't really matter what color you make them. There are tulips. I was just at the tulip fields in the Skagit Valley north of Seattle, and there are tulips of every color you can imagine. And there are some that have lighter tips on the ends and then darker bases, and then some that have the reverse. And anything you do, there's probably a tulip that matches it, I would guess, because they are every single color you can imagine. So I grabbed a whole bunch of colored pencils and just started coloring with them. I grabbed some yellows and some orangey yellows and some pinks and some dark pinks, and just started layering the colors on top of each other. And one of the things about coloring petals on flowers, and this goes for any kind of flower that you're doing, if you want one flower to appear separate from another flower, then put some darker color behind it. So see how I'm putting some dark color behind that main petal in the center? That gives it some definition, and it creates some shapes that are really distinctive for that particular petal. Tulips also often will have stripes of some kind. So if your blending isn't perfect, you can just say that's how the tulip is, because that is how the tulip is. I've colored a lot of tulips in my day and painted them and sketched them and all kinds of things, and they have lines in them. So I'm even adding lines to it so that it feels like a real tulip. A lot of them also have almost a seam down the center of a petal. So you can put a couple dark lines in there and make that look really realistic. Now this tulip on the left, my camera decided to get all zoomy and weird on me, so you didn't get to see the coloring of that, but it's basically the same as the other tulip. And then this last one, I wanted to show you that sometimes the tulips are lighter on the inside and darker on the outside, and sometimes they're darker on the inside and lighter on the outside. It's, like I said, any kind of color goes. So I'm going to put some yellow in here and then slowly darken the top edges of all of these tulip petals on the far side of the flower, and then color the other petals on the closer side in the same way that I colored the other tulips, so that there's a real difference between the ones that are on the inside and the ones that are on the outside. And I'm even getting a little smoother with the ones on the inside than I will with the ones on the outside, because that also is going to set up some difference in the flower and make it look dimensional. And look at that. Wasn't that magic, how it just popped in there? So wish I could do that in real life. That would be really nice if my coloring could just poof happen that way. But then I went in with my black and my green pencil to add the little inside bits to them, and I even added a few to the tulip on the upper left as well, because you can kind of see the inside. There might be some little black pieces peeking out. And then I picked 2 greens to use for the petals and the stems of the tulips. And the same thing goes with the petals. If you want one of them to appear in front of the other, then color the section behind it so you can see that there's one, that far left petal that's more vertical looks like it's behind the other one because it's darker. And then it makes the stem look like it's in front, and that second leaf that's at more of an angle looks like it's in front. So look for areas where you can just do a little of that. And even if you don't get it right, even if it ends up looking like an MC Escher, which some of my work sometimes does because I forget where I'm at and I start darkening one section instead of another, it still has that overall effect. So don't stress out about it. If you're stressing about coloring, you're not doing it right. It's supposed to be relaxing and fun. Now, the reason I wanted to do 2 sets of the little frames is because I wanted to bring some of the color in. I wanted that sort of really white, bright feeling and, the bright tulips, but these are really thin frames. And Ellen has these frames in all different kinds of sizes and shapes. So you can get them in rectangles and circles and squares and everything, and hexagons now too. And you can do this same thing with them. I love having the frame be a different color. So I'm using half of the yellows on one end and half of the pinky purples on the other end. So I'm going to get the same kind of coloration in those frames that I got on the flowers. I've done this with a few of the different shape frame dies, and I absolutely love how it ties that whole accent color together on everything. And in this one, I'm going to get that graduated color going from the yellow to the pink in both of these frames. Look how sweet that is. Isn't that pretty? And I've also got the texture of the wood grain in there as well. So this has a lot going for it on the card while having a whole lot of white as well, which is always nice. I added the sentiment and first stamped it in pink, and I didn't like it in pink. So I stamped yellow on top of it and sort of made my own orange. You can do that with inks, just like you can do it with your colored pencils or your markers or whatever. And that is it for this card. If you'd like another idea for what to do with this stamp set, this video is over on my channel. I launched it on Friday. You're welcome to click on the link in the doobly-doo and go check it out as well, so that if you get this stamp set, you now have 2 new ideas for how you can color it. I will see you again very soon. All the supplies are linked in the description down below. Bye-bye.